Hey everybody, happy Friday. It is January 26th, and we are doing our office hours or Ask Me Anything for the Move Up Mindset career community on the topic of money. And, normally these Ask Me Anything sessions, office hours, whatever we call them, I call them, these are things that are specific for, our premier members, but in January, we are opening up the doors a little bit to whoever wants to join. Typically, these sessions are really just to gain access to people like myself. I'm a hiring expert with over 20 years of recruiting, talent acquisition, sourcing kind of experience. I'm also a business owner. So really trying to, I guess, pick my brain and then some on any of your questions specific to the topic. We do alternate coaches or guests who have the same kind of hiring and recruiting experiences, but certainly they have a different point of view. So I do have a lot of colleagues and other people who have joined me in the past on these kind of things. But yeah, we're talking about money today. Typically these events are, for the community, like I said, but they're typically RSVP. No one showed up again or RSVP, which is okay, happens. But if you're viewing this, we'd definitely love for you guys to join us in the future. I know that next Tuesday, yeah, the 30th is our last live like this office hours open to the public. So, the topic is networking. And so hopefully you'll join us. But, the great thing is that, I do get a lot of questions or, questions here and there over the week that, if people haven't signed up, I definitely like to, record and do a video so people can review when they do have time. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Amazing thing that technology can allow us to do. So, okay. So, like I said, today's topic is about money and in relation to, you as a job seeker, professional, and how we can better handle these conversations in these spaces with, say, like a potential employer or a future client at that. With regard to a question that I got this week, kind of similar to the other day when we were talking about, hey, tools or resources that are my favorite that I would recommend to people to use. I do have a few ideas around that. So there, if you haven't had a chance yet, I definitely encourage you to check out our online courses that are in the Move Up Mindset career community, because there is this one course that is about money and interviews and talking about it and preparing yourself for these conversations with a potential employer or even your current employer. And I'm borrowing some of my advice from this course, but certainly, the few things that I would point people to if they were preparing for money conversations, they definitely need to do their research ahead of these conversations. Okay, and when I say research, I talk about this in the online course, that it's multifaceted. It's not just looking online to popular websites that have, good information. It's looking at a variety of websites that provide different data points and perspectives. But also beyond, the research encompasses a few different things. I think that we could also benefit from talking to people more about what we make and what we want to make and what is normal for the line of work that we're doing. As well as other things, right? So I think it's interesting because I've definitely seen a shift over the last 10 to 15 years that people are more open about how much they're making, more candid about these things. I know for myself, when I just was growing up in this whole thing of, work and how to talk about money, it was often considered a taboo subject in workplaces and elsewhere, but like specific to workplaces. I remember managers saying, don't discuss what you're making, what your raise was, none of that. And I think maybe I just listened to that advice too much. It's like, oh, okay, I won't talk to anybody at all. So, I really see quite a shift nowadays that people are very free about talking about what they're wanting, talking with their friends, talking with their peers, coworkers on ranges, what their experiences are. And I think this is great. This is part of the research and preparation for sure. However, I feel that among the people you're talking to, you need an informed point of view. So certainly family, friends, peers, they're all really helpful. I think, though, you would benefit from people who actually have, an informed point of view about salary ranges. So who could be some of these people? I mean, certainly people who have gone through the hiring process, the interview process themselves, or as, someone who is a decision maker, so this could be a mentor, former manager, supervisor, someone who has that perspective. I would also say if you work with any third-party recruiters, really going deep in terms of the conversation, just to get their perspective on what certain roles are paying, what they've seen, to help frame your expectations of what you seek. So this is part of it too. A lot of times we talk to people that we just, feel comfortable with, and that we know well, which I think we should, but I also think it's really important to actively solicit an outside perspective, maybe one that you won't know exactly what they'll say, but they do have an interesting point of view and it being informed as well. I know that for myself, I do a lot of reading, but I also do a lot of talking to people and seeing what are they seeing. It's not so much what should this pay. It's really understanding like what, like other recruiters, other, people who extend offers make some sort of judgment when it comes to what goes out in pay. Like, what are you seeing? That is helpful when constructing your point of view. So if you haven't already, start thinking about people who can provide those points of view to help educate and refine what you're looking for. About the data sources, I talk a little bit about this in the course, but, certainly popular websites where I call it anonymized data and verified data sources, you need to have both. Not to get into a long-winded story about it, but anonymized data, it's basically anecdotal information, what people are volunteering on some of these very popular job board websites, career stuff. This is what I'm making. This is, be it that they're commenting, in comments, or they're providing a certain data point. But nothing is verified. It's really just what they're sharing. There's nothing really tying them to prove it or produce, just verified information. So it's important to see as a whole what people are saying from these sources, but also to realize, people do embellish, even if they don't have their name out there in the public. Especially there's always that risk if you can't verify the source. of the information and what they're telling you. However, there are other sites and resources that do allow for verified information. In the course, we kind of talk about that a bit more. Like, what are some of these sites? For example, certainly there are tons of sites like this, but they just might not be as popular or known as, say, like Glassdoor or Indeed. You know, they offer the opportunity for either employers to show and pull and share information about their workforce, specifically in certain positions like salary ranges and what people are making. It's of course in aggregate, it's not down to the person's name, but you know, they'll actually provide verified data points in these wage surveys across industry. There's also public sources like for federal and other institutions, you know, academia, in some cases, if they're supported by, they're not private. There are sources online that verify the publicly stated salaries of people. And if it's not drilling down to the actual people, it's by position, location, years of service, all that sort of stuff that can help you get an idea of like what they are paying, you know, for certain ranges. So all of these things, you need to look at a variety of these sources and then formulate, you know, what you would be looking for in, you know, in terms of money, right? You need to establish your point of view and as you're crafting your expectations. One thing I will say, as you're doing your research, the next thing is, you know, you also want to check in with yourself to understand, okay, besides money, what are the other things that you value in terms of compensation? And compensation, yeah, it exceeds in this case, you know, the monetary value of, say, base salary or bonuses. Like, what are the other attributes that you value, you know, as part of benefits or other kinds of perks and stability vehicles for you? Like, and it doesn't even have to be something tied to like a quantifiable number value of money. It could even be time off or what you enjoy doing on your job, what you like to contribute to, learn about. Is it cool stuff? Like, it's a really good time to think about the things that get you up in the morning and continue the work that you want to do. So, you know, come up with these things, your list of values, if you will, and start thinking about, you know, your preferred picture of what salary and money and an opportunity at a place would look like, and then what a plan B would be. Like, if it couldn't be your most desired trait or most prioritized trait, which for many people it is money, like what other things, what could it look like to be an acceptable situation for you to take an offer? You know, have a good sense of that, because sometimes people don't really think about it that deeply, you know. They think about it like purely as money and that's it. So, you know, the idea here is that you have a really good understanding of what you know, would accept and what you're asking for, building in just the potential that, you know, conversations aren't always a direct line. You know, they don't always go according to plan. You'll be surprised that sometimes, well, most of the time, employers actually surprise you and they start lower or they start middle or something, or there's some quirky thing. So, you know, this is all part of being ready for it. But that would be my second bit of advice in terms of resources, you know, tapping into yourself and really thinking about your preferred as well as plan B. And then lastly, I mean, as far as preparing for interviews and the money conversation, you know, I think it's always good to practice these conversations. I mean, truly, like how people like to do mock interviews. I mean, this is part of it, right? You can do this with someone you trust. And again, I obviously you should do this with people that you're comfortable with, but at the same time, it's hopeful that the people you're having these conversations with can offer feedback that helps you continue that informed point of view and preparation. So if it's someone who has hired, for their teams in the past, or a very experienced HR director or whomever, or a client that establishes bill rates and hires vendors and contractors on board, whoever it might be, I would see, if you could do a mock interview with them. It's something too that, for me through coaching, that's something that I could do as well too. And I've sat on both sides and actually handled the negotiations for many offers over the years on behalf of other people, job seekers, but also on behalf of organizations where, maybe there is flexibility to go up, but then maybe there's not. So, so you want to practice. And a lot of times this is the part that a lot of people don't do. Like they have it in their head, but they don't know exactly or have practice saying the words and how all of that interaction might go down. Because it's very different when you write it out versus, saying those words and realizing the person across the table is giving you like one word answers and looking at you and not budging. So like, what do you do? How do you handle that? So this is all part of the practicing process that I encourage everyone to try as they're getting closer to those scenarios where, it's almost go time to discuss offers and really get down to it. So those would be my 3 things as far as interview resources and things to do to best prepare. I know people have asked me, are there favorite sites or resources like by name that I have? And, honestly, I would say by websites, there's so many different ones. I mean, I really do try to pull from a few different sources. So like I will look at the Glassdoors or looking at Blind, the app or the website where people can share very candid information. I also look at levels.fyi, which is a verified site for information. They do require anyone reporting, salary details for a certain role, like to share a pay stub with certain information redacted, of course, or an offer letter. I like sites like that as well. But I mean, I find great value sites like salary.com and PayScale, even though, no site or source is perfect, but it does help for constructing just that holistic point of view. I would say too that like within the last few years, I've really gotten into talking to people a bit more about what their experiences are, what they're seeing, or when they've interviewed, like what ranges are they hearing, and really just taking mental notes of that. So, I do definitely just encourage a variety of sources. I mean, you don't have to drive yourself crazy, but, I think checking out at least 2 to 3 different kinds of resources that provide information is going to be helpful. And again, this is a course. It's actually part of the performance course in our Move Up Mindset Career Blueprint. That it's the 3rd module, I want to say, in the full course, but you can buy, that module by itself as a standalone course too. We include it as a bonus section around money and the discussion of that in interviews. So you want to check that out. We'll try to maybe make part of it accessible for people to look at for some parts of it anyway, for free. But, those are some of my questions about, or that I've received in the last week or so about money discussions. I would say another popular thing is, people often ask, especially, people who don't feel like they've really advocated for themselves in the past, you know, they feel a bit sheepish to ask for more when it comes down to the offer. Like, should they ask for higher? And, they don't want to upset anybody. Everyone seems pretty on board. They hear the enthusiasm, they want you on board, the company and such. But, what I say about this is, yeah, you should always ask for more, because there's nobody advocating for you except for yourself. No matter how glowing and excited and enthusiastic a potential employer is, I mean, you need to look out for yourself. So, what you think is right for you to ask for. And hopefully that's not just based on emotion, but it's all of those other things that we talked about earlier with the preparation. You're educated about where you should be. And then, the thing is, you want to get it right in these conversations when you're establishing the job offer and accepting it. Like early on, you want to get it right. You don't want to course correct or be in these situations where they're like, well, we can't offer you that now, but we'll look at it 3 months from now. Try to avoid those situations as much as you can. I mean, the idea here is that, it's a lot easier to just get it right the first time and once than it is, you know, in the future when you don't necessarily know much about the organization, what their status is right now. So it's better to extract as much as you can upfront right now. And you shouldn't apologize for it. You shouldn't feel bad. I mean, you should definitely operate from a place of being informed and educated, but at the same time, have your preferred in mind and then also have your backup in mind. And you don't necessarily need to tell anybody at all about your backup, but that's just something that you mentally refer to. So if it isn't the ideal, is it acceptable to you as an option to go forward with? So, my answer to this is yes, you should always advocate for yourself. If you think that companies are looking out for you, I'm here to say that, they are looking to be partners, I'm sure, and have you on board, but like ultimately they're not responsible for you. Certainly that's the, attitude that a lot of people take these days, company-wise. You're looking out for yourself because surely they'll look out for themselves, and make the adjustments. So that is that. Trying to see here. I know I got another question from the week. Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to negotiating, I mean, this in itself, salary negotiations and those discussions, that's an entirely other kind of masterclass in itself, and it's something that we all could get better at. But I'd love to hear what your experiences are when you are in these situations talking about pay and asking for things. How do you normally approach that? What is your strategy? Are there certain things that you focus on, that you have questions about if it's working, that you feel is working or not? I'd love to hear from you guys. Can comment here in the course, in our community, or you can send me a message. I often take questions that people ask me and either develop courses or videos from it. So would definitely love to hear your point of view. Oh, and so, yeah, so, I would say too, a question did come in recently because, there's a real push these days for more salary law out there supporting really job seekers, the workers, for better understanding of ranges. So it's pay transparency, but also that, you can't really take past history of what you were paid and then say, oh, well, you only made 50K in your last job and you've been working for 30 years. It doesn't make sense. It's a huge jump to go to 150K, there are many places now in the United States that prohibit salary history questions. Salary transparency questions relate to ranges in, the salary and and sometimes it's more than salary, it's compensation, in broader categories. There are laws out there in certain states that require the defining of what the compensation is comprised of and what that range is, right? So unfortunately, both of these laws are not federal laws yet. I think maybe in the future it may become, the law of the land, but until then it's not. So you better check where you are to see if either of those rules are in place. Again, we kind of talk about this in the course, the performance course of the Move Up Mindset Career Blueprint full course, or module 3, your performance. So check it out. If you have any questions, let me know. But, I guess that is where I'll leave it for this Ask Me Anything. Again, thank you so much for your time in watching this, and we'll be in touch. We'll see you hopefully, or get your questions for next week when we talk about your networking, starting those kind of conversations, etc. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care. Bye.